diamonds aren't diamonds when they come out of the earth. They go through pressure to become diamonds. And I think unless you're putting yourself in that pressure cooker, you'll never really get to become that potential of being a diamond. You have to take yourself out of your comfort zone to grow. My first month I did $33,000 in revenue. I completely exceeded my expectations. I was like, oh crap, like $33,000 in the first month, with one product, by myself as a side hustle. I was like, wait a second. Hey friends, this is Tabitha Salomon, and you're listening to Dreams and Drive.
Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 249 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. This week's guest is Tabitha Salomon, who is the co-founder and CEO of Party Dash and Dash Camp, which are event companies offering outrageously fun experiences and modern party supplies. So Tabitha started Party Dash while working at Google and later launched Dash Camp after her clients came to her with a problem concerning their children during COVID-19 that she then found a unique solution for. Their new experience, Dash Camp Afterschool, is now open for enrollment. Tabitha is also a graduate of Harvard Business School, a former Samsung employee, and the co-founder of a podcast called Wind Down Build Up with fellow Harvard Business School classmate and entrepreneur and past Dreams and Drive guest, Miller of Mented Cosmetics. On today's episode, Tabitha is going to share with us her journey to entrepreneurship and why getting out of her comfort zone always led her to bigger opportunities. She's going to talk about how she was able to make $33,000 her first month in business, building an entirely new company off of parents' needs during a pandemic, the key to building a powerful network, and why business is not just guessing, business is numbers. And this, my friends, my dream drivers, is a pivotal key along our dream driving journey. So if you guys enjoy this episode, I'm going to ask that you please make sure that you're sharing it to your social media networks, to your friends, texting it, screenshotting it, posting it on Instagram, emailing it to people. I really love Tabitha's story, and I think that she's such a dynamic speaker. You guys are going to really love all the tidbits and knowledge that she shares with us today. Remember, you can follow us on social media. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing as well. If you're not already subscribed wherever you're listening to this, please hit that subscribe button. And last but not least, guys, if you want to support the show, if you want to get some Dreams and Drive merch, all you got to do is go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop to get your Dreams and Drive t-shirts. Fall is coming up. Get your Dreams and Drive crew neck sweatshirts. And we also have some limited edition Dreams and Drive aprons. Yes, for all my cookers out there, all my chefs. Those aprons are for you. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop. All right, let's hear from Tabitha.
Hey, Raina. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. So I love to always give our listeners a little background, right, on how I'm connected to guests. So we are connected through a past guest, Gabrielle Simpson. I love when, we find ways of we're able to connect through people that we know. The world is always so small, but yet also so important to, finding new people and learning new things,
Absolutely. And Gabby is the GOAT. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's always like texting me like, hey girl, did you do this? You got to do this. I'm like, yes, mom, I did it.
Yeah. You need those people in your life for sure.
Definitely. So I love to kind of start our interviews going back in time, right? I love our guests to reflect on who they were as children and what was inspiring them. So if I had to, ask you, Tabitha, what was going on in the head of 8-year-old Tabitha? How would you answer that?
What's funny is we grew up with very, very, very humble beginnings. My family, they're originally from Haiti. At one point at 8 years old in particular, my mom was a single parent. So, she at that point had a lot of drive and was trying to make it work, learning English, learning the culture, trying to raise 2 kids on her own. And for my sister and I, we did not realize we were poor, because we were the happiest kids ever. My mom made sure that faith was always, on the forefront, and that we essentially were able to unlock our imagination. So my sister and I would essentially write plays, We would create songs. We would put on whole, like full on performances for our mom when she would get home. And there was so much delight because she was so happy and proud of us. And we were so happy because we saw our parent, our mom so super proud of us. So my 8-year-old self was very imaginative, but I was also business savvy at even that young age.
How so?
So what's funny is that a couple of things when I think back is pretty funny. Like one, I would try to charge my mom $1 to get into our shows so she could watch us perform. But also I was a safety patrol in 5th grade, and there was a trip that happened to Washington, D.C. All the patrols got to go, and people didn't know our situation at home. And so everyone was like, can't wait to go. And it was a $500 ticket to go. Wow. We didn't have $500. Like, there's no way. And so me and my mom hashed out a plan. How would I get to $500 by the end of the school year so I could take this trip? We went to Costco. We bought a whole bunch of candies, chips. We started making what is now known as the famous honey dripper drinks, where it's like Kool-Aid and fruit that you freeze and it's like a homemade popsicle. And we literally started selling that out of my mom's apartment. And everyone started knowing us as the honey dripper lady. You'll come and get your honey dripper and maybe grab some chips. And we just essentially marked it up by 50% of what we bought it from Costco. And guess what? I was able to go to Washington, D.C. with my safety patrol peers. So I didn't realize it at the time, but I had these innate entrepreneurial aspirations and realized like, wow, you could buy something, flip it for a profit, and like keep everything, like all the additional incremental revenue. Like, this is really interesting. And I essentially planted that in the back of my head until years later when I went to college.
So do you remember how you felt when you were, hustling, right? Doing that 8-year-old hustling? Like, what was the feeling that was ignited within you?
I felt so empowered. It felt like, okay, like I'm 8 years old, 10 years old, however old I was, and I'm able to make money to go into my savings account, And at some point, I was making probably more than minimum wage, so I could be a 6-year-old working minimum wage, or I could be an 8-year-old selling products and making more than that. So for me, I think the word that comes to mind is just empowerment and feeling some sense of control that I didn't have to be confined to just essentially an hourly wage.
What was the dream for you then moving into an adolescent?
So I think the problem is I was introduced to boys. And
that's a real thing, right? It's a real thing.
It's so weird when I think back about my childhood because I was a very gifted child and I didn't know it because everything just came easy to me and the teachers would acknowledge it. I'm like, I'm just doing my homework and studying. But I remember in 6th grade, we had a standardized test that was taken nationally and it came back and I was in the top 1% mathematically out of all kids my age in the country. Wow. And if I could go back in time, I probably would have nurtured that. But that was also my preteen years where I was also exploring with makeup and new outfits and hair. And that took more priority for me. So as I transitioned to the adolescence, I did not prioritize, this gift that God gave me. It wasn't until, I hit high school and I was surrounded by peers. So what happened, my mom actually put me into a school called Stanton College Preparatory School. So essentially taking me out of one environment, putting me in another where people thought it was actually cool to be smart. And so I no longer had to dumb myself down and I got an opportunity to shine. And the craziest thing, I went from having a 2.8 GPA to a 3.8 GPA once my mom put me in that new environment. I went from making A, B, C, D, so straight A, so I graduated. And it was, when people say you're a product of your environment, that can be good, but it can also be bad, right? So in this situation, like my mom having the foresight to know that one change could change my life, completely changed my trajectory.
Yeah. And I was going to say, even now, right, when we think about just how much our environment can shift our impact, can shift our thinking, do you see that theme of how environments and who you surround yourself with and all that energy, how that kind of played out in your life today?
Absolutely. Because I think the notion of entrepreneurship feels very scary for a lot of people. I can speak for myself. It felt like this is going to be the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life. But what started happening is my friends around me started taking that risk. So I went to Harvard Business School, and two of my good friends, KJ Miller and Amanda Johnson, they quit their corporate jobs to start Mented Cosmetics. And then Jessica Matthews, she didn't do the corporate route at all. She started Uncharted Play, which is now named Uncharted Power. And so they both gave me the faith, like, man, these are two Black women who bet on themselves and they're making this work. You know, maybe it's not as scary as I think, but I needed to have those people around me letting me know that you got this, sis. You know what I mean? Like, you bet on yourself. The worst thing that can happen is you go back to your corporate job, but like your life will not end if this doesn't work out the way you wanted to. And so surrounding myself with entrepreneurial people who've taken that leap before me was crucial in giving me particularly the faith to be able to step out on my own.
That's so important. I want to come back to the Harvard Business School experience. But I know you went to University of North Florida, right? And you graduated with, you had 2 degrees, a marketing and business management degree. Post-college then, like, you got these degrees, you're like, all right, I know I'm good at business, I'm mathematically inclined, right? Like, I got this. Like, did you have this game plan for your life post-college?
Well, I remember talking to a mentor because I was like, I don't know what to do with these degrees. It's one of those things where like no one in my family had really, gone to college, taken the corporate path. So I didn't really have a roadmap. And so I reached out to mentors, like, I don't know what to do. And he said to me, sales. You'll have to know how to sell in every other capacity of your life moving forward. So I recommend you start there. Whether you're selling your cross-functional stakeholders, whether you're selling VCs, whether you're selling customers, whether you're selling your employees, you're always going to have to sell them on something, a vision, a product, whatever. And so that's where I started my career. I went to Johnson & Johnson and I joined their sales leadership and development program. Luckily for me, turns out that I wasn't too bad at sales. I finished number 1 in the country my 3rd year at the company and won Rookie of the Year my first year in the field. So, it was like taking that same tenacity, hunger, and drive and moving into sales. And again, I didn't realize it, but it was preparing me for entrepreneurship, right? Because in what I'm doing, I'm constantly selling.
What was the biggest sales lesson you learned?
Bar none is understanding your customers' needs. I think a lot of people tend to put things out there and see if it'll work, which is, one approach. But I always start with talking to my customers, observing my customers, watching their actual behaviors, whether it's in casual conversations or whether it's with reviews online or looking at the data. I essentially study my customers and you understand their needs to be able to create products that I think will meet their particular and solve their particular problem.
It's interesting because one of our past guests just talked about that. He was talking about how sometimes that's often what gets a lot of entrepreneurs in the early stages is they're very focused on what they like, right? It's like, I want to create, I want to create a black water bottle, right? But if your audience is telling you, hey, no, we need white water bottles, but you're like, no, you need this black water bottle, that can be that is bad for business. Is there ever a point, though, in your sales journey where you realize that, I guess, putting some of your influence or there was a point for you to actually say, hey, maybe you guys should consider this? Is it always about the customer? That's what I wanted to ask you.
I think it's always about the customer, but I think it's up to the salesperson to get the messaging right. So it lands with the customer. So in that example, that white water bottle may work for one person because they like the color scheme, but that same white water bottle might work for someone else because they feel like it's going to keep the minerals in the bottle, And so it's it's the same product, but talking to different customers in a language that's going to resonate with them is really how you win.
Okay. So then how did you end up at Samsung and then move to South Korea? Cause at this point you were in, America, you're in DC and now you're like, all right, let me get on this plane and go across the world.
So for me, coming out of business school, I got so much exposure to different everything.
Yeah.
And so I gave myself three things that I wanted to accomplish in my next corporate job. One is I had the sales experience, but it was very executional. And so I really wanted to have a role that was more strategic, big thinking, big picture, visionary type of role. And so I wanted to find a strategy role. Two is I really wanted to live abroad. Now, when I say live abroad, I thought it would be London or Paris. Never in a million years did I think that would mean South Korea. But that was really tied to number three, which is I really wanted exposure and experience to tech. I realized that before I had worked in healthcare, and although I enjoyed my time there, the industry is pretty slow moving, where tech is disrupting every single industry in our world today. And I wanted to be part of that movement in some way. And so I needed to get my foot in the door to understand how do tech leaders think. And so Samsung came knocking at my door and said, well, Tabitha, we can give you a strategy role in technology abroad in Seoul, South Korea. And you know what? It was an opportunity that I just couldn't pass.
And that goes back to the, sometimes you got to change locations to get these new experiences that will impact you, right?
Absolutely.
What was life for you like in South Korea, and how do you feel that prepared you or helped mold who you are today?
I think that there were some great things, and definitely more great than not so great. When I think about the great things, I think about just the idea of community. In Asia and Eastern cultures in general, they tend to be collectivism culture. So they look out for each other. A simple example is if someone's sick, they wear a mask because they don't want to get other people sick. Where in individualistic societies, we tend to think about ourselves more, unless someone tells us, hey, you need to be thoughtful about someone else. So I miss those type of things. I miss how they have the world's fastest Wi-Fi. I miss how just advanced they are with like public transportation. Everything runs on time. Like there's never a train that was late. Everything is super clean. They've essentially, anyone who doesn't know anything about Korea, 50, 60 years ago, they were considered one of the poorest countries in the world. So people would talk about Korea in the same breath as Rwanda. And they had a benevolent leader who came along and essentially bestowed a couple of different families like Samsung and Hyundai family and gave them money and said, I want you to build prosperous companies that will employ people in our country and take us out of ruin. And that's exactly what happened. These chaebols completely revolutionized that country. And so just seeing how if you have a strong leader and you have people who believe in a vision as not just like an individual, but as a community, as a country, what can happen in a very short period of time was very, very powerful. And so I think about that a lot when I'm moving into different aspects of my life now, which is like, who are the people around me? And are they like for themselves? Or are they thinking about the group and the bigger vision?
Yeah. And then even from a business perspective, because I feel like we're always collecting information from everywhere that we work, right? What's the biggest piece of information you collected as a Samsung employee?
Move fast. They would literally come into a meeting. I would be in a meeting with like an executive and he'll say, I think we should launch this new phone in 3 months. And I think if you were to do that at Google or do that at Apple or do that anywhere else in the world, they would look at them and say, that's impossible. But the employees in that room were all like trusting their leaders. And they're like, well, if he says we can get it done in 3 months, we'll get it done in 3 months. We'll do whatever it takes to get it done in 3 months. And they would move so fast and make it happen. It seemed like a miracle. But to me, again, it's like this idea, like you can move as fast as you want to move, like don't allow the limits of what you've seen in the past tell you what can happen in a set period of time. Like Samsung taught me that fast is the way you win.
I have to write that down. Fast is the way you win. Do you feel like that's still in your business today? I mean, I know that we haven't yet talked about what you're doing now, but giving our listeners a little hint, do you feel like that's also true today for you?
Most certainly. We identified a problem that was, a result of COVID-19. COVID became headline news more so the tail end of February, early March. And we now have a company that's addressing, customers' needs that is a result of that. So, most people would say, like, you built a company in 3 months? Yeah, we did.
That is
we moved
amazing.
fast.
What was your experience like as a Black woman in Seoul?
I think most people were confused by why I was there.
Because I'm guessing there weren't many, right?
No, I mean, there would be like a month at a time where I wouldn't see another Black person in the workplace. That's not an exaggeration. I actually ended up starting a community called Soul and Soul, where Black professionals could come essentially to my house for dinner parties, for wine nights, for nights out in the town to have some type of community. And so to be a Black woman, people never gave you the benefit of the doubt. I remember coming to the office one day, I decided I was going to rock my natural hair, and it became the talk of the town. I mean, literally everyone from the most senior person in the office all the way down to the most junior person took turns coming to my desk to say, Tabitha, we heard you changed your hair and that we needed to come check it out, as if I was an art exhibit. And one of the senior people proceeded to put both hands of his into my hair. I was like, he's like, I've seen this on TV. I've never seen this in person. I can laugh about it now. At that time, I was absolutely mortified. And so you have those cringeworthy stories. But I think what would also happen is I was often deployed to different countries to represent Samsung. So I would go to Johannesburg, South Africa. I would go to Sydney, Australia. I would go to Delhi, India. I would go to other, Bogota, Colombia. And they would say, Tabitha, go solve a problem in this market for the next month or so with the executive team. And so while I was there, people again would be like, you're coming from headquarters as a Black woman? And they would hear, and it sucks that I would have to do this, but once they would hear my pedigree, they would say, oh, okay, so you're actually smart. That's why you're here. Okay, tell us what you have to say. But up until they actually heard my credentials, there was just this perplexed look on their face. And so, kill them with kindness, always show up prepared and deliver the results. By the end, I feel really proud to know that I left a positive impression of what it is to be a Black woman in all these markets. Because to be honest with you, if you go to Bogota, the only Black people are the valet, your housekeepers. So they told me, there's like, we've never seen a Black person in this setting before. So it was a bit shocking to let them know that we exist, and that we're highly, highly competent.
Why do you think, or what would you say to the Black women, right, who are scared to enter these new environments because they are only one of?
I feel like you have to take yourself out of your comfort zone to grow. If you take a look at, I remember one of my buddies told me once that, diamonds aren't diamonds when they come out of the earth. They go through pressure to turn them to become diamonds. And I think unless you're putting yourself in that pressure cooker, you'll never really get to become that potential of being a diamond. And I think that if you have a desire to, and this is just one person's opinion, but if you have a desire to excel, whether it's like through global travel or through corporate settings or building your own business, you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so, do it in baby steps, put your toe in the water and just go to a country that is accepting of Black people, but doesn't have a lot of Black people until you're ready to go, to venture out to something even more. But I think that, as Black women, Black people in general, we are such a phenomenal, powerful, and rich. I can go on and on how great of a culture we are. And I think more people need to see us. So I think, I don't want to put this pressure on anyone, but I think we need to put ourselves in those situations so people can see just how wonderful we are.
So I know after Samsung, you then went to Google and you were working in growth marketing. Was there ever a point, because you started out as an 8-year-old hustling, right? Having this desire to have your own business. When did that start to creep back up for you? That desire again?
So I think when I moved back to the States, I looked at my bank account and was like, I'm not hitting my life financial goals, and I just hit 30. So, I don't know if corporate America is going to be the path that gets me there. And so, in the back of my head, I started essentially pinning down any idea that I thought was a good idea and saying that at some point I'll have the courage to go all in on something that I really believe can be disruptive. So in the meantime, I was going to join a company where I felt like I could bring value, but I could also strengthen skill sets that would be important into this next venture. And so for me at this time, I had sales experience and strategy experience, but I thought marketing would be the next best step because we want people to buy whatever product I'm putting out there. And so I raised my hand for project after project after project. Again, that often made me uncomfortable. I often felt underqualified to take a lot of these projects, but it was a learning experience. It was a learning opportunity for me to essentially prepare myself for this next chapter in my life.
When was the moment that you had this idea for Party Dash?
Yeah, so I remember I was planning a birthday party for my friend. And I remember having to visit 3 to 5 different stores to piecemeal all the party supplies and decorations together to give it the aesthetics that I want. Because, we live in a generation where you want things to be beautiful, whether it's for your guests or for the gram. So that's important. And then the inconvenience of it, which is not cool. And then I found when I walked into these party retailers, they were often chaotic and overwhelming. In one of my customer interviews, I had a mom say to me, I feel like I've thrown up when I walk out of a party city. And so
that is true. I'm thinking about that though, right? You're like, when you go in, it's kind of like you're walking into the mess.
It really is. And I was like, really? Why does no one come up with a better experience in this category? You're trying to celebrate, but you have to go through throw up to make that happen. What? And then I felt like the products were often outdated, poor quality, poor design. And so I thought there could and should be a better way that people can buy better products and have a better experience doing so. And I thought, why not have that person be me?
Were you nervous, or what gave you the confidence to say that? Why not that person be me?
I said, I don't have to quit my job to test this out. I can actually start selling a few products as a side hustle first to see, is there a way for me to essentially validate that other people feel the way I feel and that these products will actually solve a need? So that's what I started doing. I actually started manufacturing products and quickly selling them on Amazon because it's the fastest way to test if something will work or not. And the answer is yes. I won Amazon Choice Award. I was, my first month I did $33,000 in revenue. I completely exceeded my expectations. I was like, oh crap, $33,000 in the first month, with one product, by myself as a side hustle. I was like, wait a second.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. And so when that happened, I was like, I think I'm onto something here. And so what I did is I launched a few more products and I started realizing what worked and what didn't work. And I used that information to essentially say, okay, I have a really good, strong starting point. Kids' party supplies seem to be the biggest pain point. So I'm going to go all in that particular customer and I'm going to really understand how else can I make their experience better and then build a brand around that. And that's what I did.
So I realized this just now that I didn't get back to the Harvard Business School experience, but just for people to get to understand how you knew how to do this, you went to Harvard Business School, right? Do you feel like that time there at this point in this whole testing of the idea, validating the idea, do you think that Harvard's business school experience is worth it?
So I went to Harvard for a few reasons. One, it was I knew coming from a humble background, I didn't do Jack and Jill, right? I didn't go to Ivy League undergrad. Matter of fact, I'm the only person in history that has gone from the University of North Florida and graduated from Harvard Business School. So, I have beat the odds in so many ways. And so a large part of me going to Harvard was exposure. I wanted to understand, how people say you don't know what you don't know. I knew that was true. So I didn't know were there other career opportunities that I would be better suited for. I just had no idea because I lacked exposure. So that was one really important thing to me. The second thing was a network. While at Harvard, I realized I'm definitely going to be an entrepreneur because most of my peers who did come from the wealthy families that became close friends of mine, their families did it through entrepreneurship. And so I was like, I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm seeing a trend, it's the people who are willing to bet on themselves, who, that are like remove the ceiling from themselves are the ones who seem to get the wealthiest. So the networking was really important for me. So like, if you talk about exposure, if you talk about networking, Harvard absolutely gave me those things. I don't know that it necessarily teaches you how to be like an extraordinary entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur actually needs to be scrappy as hell. I feel like Harvard more so prepares you to be a really strong corporate leader, in my opinion. I think that they're trying to change their image. There's a program called Field now where they give each team $5,000 to start a business, and it's required for you to start a business while you attend HBS. And some of those businesses have actually turned into like mammoth of companies, at this point. But I think it was a network, because it was my network who allowed me to raise some VC funding. It was my network that got me the door open to go to Samsung and Google. It was my network that essentially gave me the friendships that surrounded me with other entrepreneurs, that gave me the faith to jump out and do this myself. So, did Harvard prepare me? Yes, but probably not in the ways that people would think.
All right. So jumping back to 2017, you made this $33,000 in 1 month. You realized you were onto something. What did you actually do then to turn it into, I guess, the scale?
Yeah. So my first product launched December 2017. It was a gold Happy New Year banner, and it was one SKU, and that's how I did my 33,000.
Wait, you made $33,000 from one product?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I'm even more amazed. And I feel like that goes to show, right? Like, if there is demand, then there's an ability to build something around it, right?
Absolutely. And then what happened is I launched a couple other products throughout 2018 to see like what products were landing, what wasn't landing. Because again, like I come from a humble family where you're taught, go to school, get a good job, get married, have kids, retire. And I was breaking what I had been told was what a good girl did, which is like, leave the corporate job, bet on yourself, screw getting married. You're in your 30s, you don't have kids. Like I just did everything my own way, So I was in a place where like, okay, like if I'm going to take this big, bold step, that's what it felt like at the time, I want to feel like it is a calculated decision. And so 2018 was like me continuing to collect those Google checks, but I also made a really smart decision, which was I decreased my cost of living by almost a third. So I moved into a crappy apartment, I just cut my expenses everywhere that I possibly could, because that essentially gave me more runway for when I quit my job and needed to essentially be able to sustain with no income for some period of time. So I was working at Google. I was working 80 plus hours a week, doing this on the side, trying to validate. I knew that I was going to leave because I kept getting validation from God, from customers, from the universe. And I wanted to wait till I got my bonus check before I left. So everything was thought out. And once my bonus check hit, the next day, thank you, Google, for this opportunity. I left.
What was it actually the next day that you put in your letter?
Literally the next day.
Oh man. I love that.
And you know what? My team was so supportive. They're like, Tabitha, so many people said, I've always had this dream to do what you're doing, to like step out and pursue something like fully. But I've never had the courage to. That's what people kept telling me over and over again in our private conversations when I said I was leaving Google. And so that just goes to tell you that there's a lot of people who want to do this, and that's why I love this podcast, is because it's letting people know that you can do it. Like you have everything in your arsenal to do it, just maybe take baby steps until you're ready to take the full leap.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges though that you faced? I guess, post leaving Google, now you knew that this was like, all right, I have to give my all to Party Dash, right? What were some of the challenges?
Yeah, I think it was like thinking about what is the right product assortment, because we're a physical products business. So for instance, I was going to launch with just like unicorn party supplies. And with our unicorn party supplies, the parents were saying, well, what if I have a son? If I land on your page and I only see unicorns, that's not inclusive enough. Okay, well, I'll launch one girl product, one boy product. well, if my neighbor has, dinosaurs, then what am I going to have? Okay, guys. So it was like this thing where, okay, I'll launch with 6 or 7 different themes, but that meant I needed more capital to buy that inventory. And you can't just have plates, cups, napkins, because our value proposition was that we were going to have beautiful original design. We were going to have everything expertly curated for that busy parent, shipped directly to his or her door. And the products are going to be eco-friendly. So we were thinking about the major issues in this industry and like essentially rectifying all of them with the Party Dash experience. But that meant capital was required. So that meant I needed to go out and raise some money so we can actually pull this thing off in a way that would be acceptable as a minimal viable product in the marketplace.
Wow. How did you go about and get those funds?
It was not easy. I essentially knocked on a ton of doors. This goes back to the Harvard experience. People were so kind with just making warm introductions for me. My Google network also very kind in making introductions. And I think being able to show there was some traction, some proof point, instead of me saying, hey, I have an idea that I wrote on a napkin, I was like, hey, we actually have sales. And this is a customer that we're targeting. And we've done our market research. And this is a prototype of what these products will look like. We just need the capital. This is how we plan on acquiring customers. It was a very well thought out plan. I had enough people believe in me, my vision, and what we were trying to do. So we were able to raise enough capital pre-seed round so we could actually launch this thing.
Okay. And, I had a question because I think about this a lot is, oftentimes when we think about parties, right, especially as being a Black woman, we always think about, I feel like there's a lot of people who are in the design business, right? The event curation, the event design, but you're in the event supply, right? And that's a totally different segment of the industry. And I did some research. There aren't that many Black women who are running these type of businesses. What did you learn about being in a different end of the niche, right? Of the events business?
I found out that I'm definitely an outsider. A lot of these people know each other already who are in this industry. And to date, I have not met another Black person, man or woman, who runs a party supply business. And this is after meeting hundreds of founders in this space. I had one on LinkedIn reach out to me who said that she was getting ready to launch her own. And I was like, sis, let me know how I can help, type of thing. But what I found is they all know each other. And so, there might be one that's a party supply blogger and one that sells party supply. So they'll do each other favors and things of that sort. And so I've had to find creative ways because, again, I'm not coming from the party events industry. I'm not coming from the party supply industry. I'm coming from a business background who had a personal need that she was really passionate about to create something that would solve a bigger problem. And so I've had to tap into other marketing sources to essentially build brand awareness and drive sales for our company.
What were some of the biggest brand awareness channels or customer acquisition strategies that you thought were beneficial to building the business?
Yeah, what's interesting? So my team hears me say this on every call. Test it. Every call, I'm like,
data, right? I'm guessing you're bigger in data. Which is lovely. I love it.
Everything is based off data. It's like, okay, that's a great idea. Test it, A/B test it, come back with the results, and then we'll talk about next step. Literally, that's an everyday conversation with my team. If we don't have numbers, because I think in business school, one of my professors would say, if you can't measure it, you can't do it, type of thing. If you can't measure it, what's the point of doing it, right? Because you don't know if it's working or not. And so we test everything. We test SEO, we test Google ads, we test Facebook ads, we test YouTube ads, we test Pinterest ads. We test everything. We test press. And different things have different roles in, the funnel for us. What we are seeing is when we have press, that does wonders in driving traffic to the business. Same thing for influencers. So I would say press and influencers are probably the biggest traffic drivers for us right now.
And what do you see from, from being a founder in this industry, when you're on Instagram, when you're watching other newbie entrepreneurs getting started, right? Mm-hmm. What's the thing that you feel like a lot of people are forgetting about, doing wrong?
Yeah.
could be doing better?
Yeah. Well, first of all, anytime I see someone start to venture, I get so excited for them because if they're anything like me, like it took some courage to do that, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's full time, and then to announce it to your friends and family because you don't know how it's going to pan out. And so if it doesn't pan out the way you want, you're thinking to yourself, am I going to be embarrassed if this fails? Do I even want to tell people about it? So first off, like kudos, like super proud of you. What can I do to help? But in regards to the mistakes I see, it's like, a lot of times, this is what we're just talking about. People aren't looking at numbers. They aren't looking at their full funnel strategy. So you can't just turn on Facebook ads and like, oh, my Facebook ads aren't working. I'm not getting any sales. That's not how it works. You have to have a top of funnel strategy, middle of funnel strategy, and a bottom of the funnel strategy, right? And all those things should have numbers associated with it. So just a simple example, like if you say that you want to do $1 million in your first years of sales, love it. That's ambitious. I love it. Cool. Now, how do you get there? Okay, so break that down per month. So that means you're going to make around 100,000 per month. Okay, break that down per week. That means you're going to need to make $25,000 per week. Okay, break that down per day. So on and so on. It's like, okay, so to make this set number per day, let's say, $5,000 per weekday. Okay, so are you selling 5 items for $1,000 each? Are you selling 1,000 items for $50 each? Okay, so once you have those numbers, how do you get 5 people to buy that 1,000 items? Do you need to have 100 people know about you? 1,000 people know about you? Until you have those numbers in place, you're essentially like guessing. And business is not guessing. Business is numbers.
I love that. Business is not guessing, people. And I think so many people are scared. I think especially creative entrepreneurs, right? I would identify as somebody who's a creative, right? That's the part where we get nervous.
Yeah.
That's the part where we get nervous. So then how critical is it to have then someone on your team who can help balance you out?
Absolutely. I think that yin and yang energy is so critical. Like, I happen to be good at numbers, but I have a CTO to help me with all my tech stuff because like, I don't know how to code, like I don't know how to do that stuff, and then I have someone else who is doing operations who like handles like, we'll talk about Dash Camp in just a moment, but like orchestrating all the scheduling and the communication, making everything runs on time. Like they're exceptional at that. And so like understanding where you're strong and showing up consistently in that place, but also understanding your deficiencies and surrounding yourself, whether it's with a mentor, a consultant, a freelancer, or someone actually on your team. Like there are hacks around this. If you're like, I can't afford to hire an employee, don't hire an employee, hire a freelancer, exchange equity for it, pay someone hourly. There's hacks around being able to find people who will support you in the areas that, you may not be the strongest.
Yeah. So let us go to February 2019, right? A crisis hits the world. COVID-19. What happened? What inspired you then? How did you go from focusing on Party Dash, right?
Yeah.
To then realizing, hey, there's a new opportunity for us here.
What's interesting? It was the parents. It was our customers who told us what they needed. And this is why it's so important to have a close relationship with your customers. I, love to hop on calls and talk to, it's often moms, they're busy moms, who are saying it is literally the worst thing ever to have to work from home and do childcare and make sure my kids are in school at the same time. This has been the most overwhelming, the most stressful time in my life. And when you start to hear that over and over again, you're like, whoa, this is a really big problem. And then summer comes around and people start thinking, am I now going to have to play camp counselor on top of working from home to keep my kids entertained? Like, at least when they're in school, their teachers could keep them occupied a period of the day. Now it's all on me because COVID is not going away. If anything, we're seeing a spike break out again across this country. And so we started talking to our customers and saying, what can we do to help? Like, what would be a solution that would really help you in some way during this period of time and maybe beyond? And what we heard is if you could find something that was fun was the number one thing, and enriching to give my kids just for a couple hours a day, that alone would be a lifesaver. And so we essentially said, okay, let's see what that would look like. So what we did is we essentially went out and found the best teachers in each category. So for instance, for our STEM class, she teaches PBS STEM. She's a PBS STEM host, and she teaches STEM at Dash Camp. Our PE coach is actually a former NFL player. Our magician has won CBS Best Magician for Kids. And we went out and we found the best teachers for kids because we knew that they had to be highly engaged and stimulated the entire time for this to work. We essentially opened up camp and said, let's see if this works. Let's give people a day trial to see if they enjoy the experience. And what happened was 95% of people who came to the free trial signed up to join Dash Camp because it was that enjoyable for the kids. And the parents were like, I actually could walk away for 2 hours and like not have to do anything. So we were really solving a problem. The messages that are coming through really give me goosebumps and chills because we know that we're helping people through a very stressful time.
I love that you mentioned that you were able to find a new product for your existing customers, right? That's something like, so they were your first, I guess, test customers, right?
That's right. Well, I was going to say that's exactly right because those people, they trusted us as a brand, right? So they already trusted Party Dash. So they knew that we put out, phenomenal high-end products. People rave about our service. Like we're very fast and really big on making sure people have good customer service. I feel like that's something that's kind of died as an art for businesses. And so they knew that they could trust us with their party supplies. They could trust us with, this kids camp. And so they were willing to at least give us a try, especially since it was a free one-day experience.
Wow. And the thing that I want to go back to, because you mentioned this as a lesson you learned from Samsung, is the ability to move fast, right? It hasn't been that long since the world was diagnosed with COVID-19, right?
Right.
I want to say around like late February, early March.
Right.
Here it is, the beginning of July, and you have a business. Like what? How? Are you okay? You rested?
The answer is no, I'm not resting at all. What is rest? I think this is about having phenomenal people around you who believe in what you're trying to do and will go the extra mile to make it happen. So, because this is a summer camp, we have to launch it in the summer. It doesn't work, Mm-hmm. And so what happened is, I had my head of operations, I had a marketing intern who we've now hired as a marketing lead. She did a phenomenal job that we converted her. Our CTO, our UX UI designer, myself. So we have a team of 6. We came up with this idea as just a brainstorming session. And, I stewed on it for a week and I was like, I think this is actually a great idea. My CTO was the one who threw it out, just like, hey, I think we should do this. And I was like, okay, let's think about that. And I came back and called, like, guys, we made the decision. We're going to make this happen. That also means that other things are going to have to be taken off our plate that we've been working on. And we all need to go all in. Because if we're all pushing one boulder up the hill, we have a much better chance of actually making up the hill versus 6 people pushing boulders in different directions. And so that's exactly what we did. We all got behind it and was committed to making this happen. And here we are. Dash Camp is very much alive and well.
The summer only lasts till August, right? Mm-hmm. Is there plans to, or are there plans to have it exist beyond August?
Yeah, because, the thing is, the experts are saying COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon. I think that's reality if you take a look at the data. So I think we'll be here as support for parents for after school care. We'll be here for parents when their kids just need a break during the middle of the day and they're being restless. We'll be there for them however long this pandemic happens to provide a solution that gives their kids a fun, enriching time and them a much needed break.
Yeah. And what I think too is I just think what COVID has done to a lot of industries is just realizing that there are new ways to do things, right? Yeah. So maybe it may be the new norm to include these digital enrichment experiences alongside live event things or live things, right?
Yeah.
It may just be, maybe the industry it'll just be a new industry that we'll get used to.
Yeah.
You know?
We actually believe that's going to be the trend, to be honest with you. we see that as based off, our customers' conversation, based off Google Trends, based off of additional analytics and data. We see that exactly what you said is right. Like the world was already moving digital, but we're here. Like things that people said couldn't be done online is now the norm, right? Like healthcare, they were very reluctant to have doctor, patient calls virtually. Now that's like standard in a number of hospitals. Same thing for like a summer camp. Like last year, to say you're going to do a summer camp online often meant you couldn't afford to send your kid to a way camp. Now it's become like the cool, trendy thing. It's like I can send my kid to this experience. And like in the case of Dash Camp, have access to teachers that you otherwise would never have access to for a really affordable price, right? Like most of the times you wouldn't have a PE coach who used to be in the NFL, right? Like top 1% of college players make it to the NFL, and this guy is teaching your kids. Like where else would that happen but at Dash Camp because of this particular situation? So there are some bright lines that are coming out of this particular scenario, like this situation that we're in, which is accelerating a lot of businesses digitally.
So I have a question then, Tabitha, because you guys are only, I want to say 4 months into the business, right? What's the hardest thing now that you're experiencing?
Oh, like today, for instance, we had a Fast Company article come out. And there was a writer who actually sent her daughter to Dash Camp to experience it. And her daughter loved it. And in the article, she was like, for an hour, like my kid was so engaged in the dance party and the puppet show that like I actually could get work done. And I snuck in a glass of wine or something cute like that, she said in her article. And so when you have people just raving about you, that means that there's growth happening. And so we want to be able to continue to maintain this exceptionally high level of customer service as we continue to grow. Because, people will say like all growth is not good growth. And so we want to make sure as we grow, we continue to, like I said, continue giving people, both the kids and the parents, an elevated experience.
What's something you've learned about yourself as you've stepped into the CEO founder role?
You can't do it alone. I think in sales, it was me and the customer, and they either bought the product or they didn't buy the product. But, I'm a woman of faith, so it was me and God, I worked in other roles where a lot of times, we have small teams, but it was often individual glory or failure. Where here, I feel like in business, like in the way that I've never seen show up in my life is like, it really is about the people around you. So when I went all in on Party Dash, I was by myself and it was so tough. I mean, it was gruesome. And then I started to build out my team to now the 6-person team. And now I feel motivated to get up at 6 a.m. every day and give it my all because I know I have people counting on me, and not doing alone, thinking about my advisors, my investors, my customers, my employees, like all these people who make it work, without any of these people, it breaks. So you can't do it alone. You got to have the right people in your life and in your corner to make this entrepreneurial thing work.
Have you ever felt like giving up?
Of course. I'm not going to say that it happens often because it doesn't. I think that I'm built just as a very resilient person. I think, again, it goes back to my childhood. I grew up super humble. So when things would fall apart, like I didn't even notice. I was like, oh, that just means I need to change direction. I just naturally always thought that, and I still tend to do that. But in those few times where I felt that way, I think, again, like having people around me who love me, who believe in me, who encourage me, who speak life into me has been instrumental in me saying everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, and I know I was joking about it with you earlier, and I was going to ask you, hey, are you resting, right? But what are some of the things that you try to, I should say, you try to incorporate into your life just so that you have that balance? Because as a dream driver, sometimes when you're on the road, when you're trying to drive toward this dream, you can get very focused and then lose sight of other things. But it's always important to make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Absolutely.
And other mental rejuvenating activities. What are some of those things for you?
Yeah, so there's a book called Miracle Mornings. Have you ever heard of it?
I feel like I've heard of it, but I never read it.
Okay, so definitely one to download on Audible or pick it up and read it. But this book is life-changing. It essentially forces you to create time and space for things that will help with your personal growth. So a Cliff Note version of it is it requires you to get up an extra hour early. And everyone who says I'm not a morning person, this book dispels that whole notion and essentially equips you on how to retrain your brain to believing that you become a morning person. And so now I'll get up at 6 a.m. versus my normal 7 a.m. And during that hour, there's this formula called Savers that he recommends. So you wake up, wash your face, you brush your teeth. First thing you do is you have silence. So just for me, it's 5 minutes of prayer, whereas me and God, I'm thanking him for everything that happened the day before and everything that's about to happen in that upcoming day. A is about affirmation. So speaking into existence, the things that you want to happen for your life, both short term and long term in different areas of your life. V is visualizing. So, okay, I know the number that I want my business to hit in a certain horizon. I look and I see my bank account. I see that number in it physically every morning now. E is exercising. So I don't go all in. I literally go on a 2-mile jog every morning, a little bit of cardio. I give myself a 10-minute cool down with stretching, yoga. And that's my exercise. And then R is reading. So this is when I do my devotion. And then S is scribing. So essentially taking 5 minutes. So I have a 5-minute journal where I essentially say, essentially my affirmations, what I believe will happen in that day. It's kind of a prioritization list also, like a to-do list, but it's intended to more so be a vision of what you want to accomplish. And so all that could be done in an hour, hour and a half if you're super efficient. But I'm telling you, if you do those things, that practice every single morning, your life will not be the same. It would not be the same. So giving yourself an hour every day, is it worth it to create the life that you want, the business that you want, the relationships that you want? And for me, I think the answer is yes.
Ooh, I love that. I'm definitely going to go to Amazon right after this and add that to my cart. What's next for Tabitha? What's next for Party Dash? What's next for Dash Camp? Let us know.
Yeah, Dash Camp is growing. I'm so excited about this. Like I said, we are continuing to get more press coverage because we're solving a real problem. But ultimately, Party Dash and Dash Camp, we are in the business of events and experiences. So we're constantly looking for new ways to make it easier for our customers, primarily our parents. We're making it more fun for the kids, for friends and family to celebrate and enjoy life. So as long as it includes celebration, events, technology, families, parents, kids, then Party Dash and Dash Camp will probably be somewhere in the mix.
I was just telling myself, Raina, send party-.com. Is it party? Yeah, party-.com to your sister because she's planning my drive-by baby shower. Oh. And I'm like, listen, y'all, because you know what? I love my sister, and if she listens to this, I love you, sis, right? But I know that they're not the most event savvy, people, but they really want to do something nice. I'm like, listen, just get one of these kits. Yeah. You don't have to worry about everything.
It literally saves you. We did the research. It saves parents or, the party host somewhere between 10 to 15 hours just by buying a box.
What?
So it's crazy.
Listen, she's getting this link right after we get off this interview.
Amazing.
Let's talk about, if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success, right, Tabitha? Mm-hmm. So tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit before they hit the road.
I think the first thing is having a clear vision, but with milestones. Right. So I think if you say let's use $1 million example, because people love to throw that number around, right? It's my vision is to build a company that changes the water bottle industry. Okay, great. So what does that mean? And how long are you giving yourself to make that a reality? So maybe it's I want to do $1 million in a year by selling these innovative water bottles. Cool. You don't get there in a year. What happens month by month, quarter by quarter, to make that vision a reality. 2 is this idea, and we've talked about this throughout our conversation, Raina, is being data driven. So business is numbers. whether it's about your customer acquisition strategy, understanding your costs, looking at your just overall analytics. Like you have to, even if you're not a numbers person, like I taught myself half this stuff on YouTube, to be honest. I just watched YouTube videos until I understood it, because this stuff is not innate, like you don't just naturally know, how to build a funnel and the sales stimulator. You go on YouTube and someone teaches you and you just copy it and apply it to your business. So getting comfortable with numbers and also bringing people onto your team that can help you with numbers. And then the third thing is this idea of resiliency, because things have never worked out exactly the way you planned, but it's how you respond to it. Like, do you give up? Do you pivot? Do you keep pushing through? And any one of those can work, but if you're about creating a long lasting company that meets customers' needs and is profitable, then you're going to push through, pivot when necessary, but continue on that path towards success.
I love it. Clear vision, be data driven, and have that spirit of resiliency. Thank you so much, Tabitha. I know I've been so inspired by our conversation, so I only hope that our dream drivers have been as well. Can you let us know where we can find you online, how people who are interested can experience the Dash experience in real life?
Yeah, of course. So if you want to just follow me online on Instagram, I drop just inspirational success hacks for those who follow me at Tabitha_Salomon. Salomon is spelled Salomon. If you're interested in checking out Dash Camp, it's www.dash, D-A-S-H, followed by an actual dash, camp.com. And Party Dash is simply at partydash.com.
All right. And there was one quote from your Instagram. Like, I love your infographics that you have. Stop mining for gold, sell the shovels. All right. Listen, that is a game changer.
It's real, man. It's real. Like, just follow me on Instagram. I also am very transparent about my struggles that I go through in building a business. I've had some ups, I've had some downs, and I just hope that it helps other people as they embark on their own entrepreneurial venture.
Well, thank you so much, Tabitha. I really enjoyed chatting with you here today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 249 with Tabitha. I hope you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please, please, please make sure that you're sharing it with your networks. You can find us across the board at Dreams and Drive on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you're using the hashtag Dreams and Drive as well, so I can go in and see who's talking about the show. Tag me if you repost on Instagram, if you repost anywhere. I always like to get in on there and engage right back with you guys. If you have not already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening, so that you get notifications every time we have a new episode. And if you want to get our weekly newsletter, The Keys, it goes out every week. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join to sign up. dreamsanddrive.com/join. Lastly, guys, I get this all the time. How do I support the show? How do I show Dreams and Drive some love? Well, there are two ways that you can support. You can always get some Dreams and Drive merchandise. So if you want to get a Dreams and Drive t-shirt, a Dreams and Drive crew neck, just in time for the fall, Dreams and Drive limited edition apron, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop. That's dreamsanddrive.com/shop. And last but not least, if you want to be part of our Patreon community or you want to donate to the show, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/donate. That's dreamsanddrive.com/donate. Guys, I don't know about you, but those keys to success that we talked about today, the being or having a clear vision, making sure you're data driven, and also being resilient, those are things that I'm going to be putting into my own life. I definitely now am really getting really focused and really serious now that baby's on the way. He's not here yet, y'all. He's not here yet, but these are definitely things that have been on my mind as I am gearing up for this new part of my journey. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 250. Bye, guys.